Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! Okay, so this story takes place over 10 years ago. I'm from Saskatchewan, Canada, and if you know our winter themes, then you will understand why I was so excited to go to Texas to visit my dad and stepmom over the holidays. However, let me just say that their winter weather is like my spring weather, so I was in shorts and tank tops basically the entire time. Now that I have given a little bit of information, let me introduce you to the players of this story. You have me, a 16-year-old female who is the stereotype Canadian polite until you push me too far. You have entitled mom who is truly the definition of a Karen. You have an entitled dad who believes women needs to do what he says and serve him. And you have their son, who looked to be around 6. So let me set the stage. Target, week after Christmas, and me in a pair of shorts that were not that short and were bought for me by my mom, who is a traditional teacher and who made sure I was always appropriately dressed, and a tank top that showed a little skin. Again, my mom had bought it for me. I was out shopping with my stepmom and was looking at clothes as she needed to get some groceries. As I was looking around, I was listening to my music, both headphones in, when all of a sudden my headphones were ripped out of my ears and this lady started yelling at me. This is the conversation, most of which I remember, as it was just that crazy.
Where are your parents?
I'm sorry, what? Is something wrong?
I said, where are your parents? Or are you too stupid?
Listen, lady, I don't know what your issue is, but please leave me alone.
No, where are your parents?
Why are you wanting to know?
Because you're too young to be by yourself and are dressed like that. I will call the police.
What? Listen, lady, I'm old enough to be looking at clothes by myself, and also I'm not dressed badly.
Yes, you are. Only bad girls dress like you in this kind of weather. Or did your parents never teach you to respect your body?
Okay, lady, listen. I'm not from here. I'm only visiting during the holidays.
No, you're not. I know you're from here. You just like dressing inappropriately. You need to learn to dress appropriately for the weather.
At this point, I see a large man over 6 feet tall walk over. He was dragging his son. I should mention at the time my height was about 4'7", very short for my age. However, anyone looking at me could clearly see that I was not a child, that I was at least a teen. The entitled dad asks,
"What's going on here?" I was just telling this little girl that she needs to put on some proper clothes.
And I was just telling you that I am not from here. I live in Saskatchewan.
That place doesn't exist, stop lying. My wife is right. It is people who dress like you that make us homeschool our child. We don't want them to be corrupted.
Actually, it does exist. It's in Canada.
Shut up, witch. No one asked you.
Me looking at the dad? So you say that people like me is why you homeschool your son? Maybe if you did send your kid to school, he would learn where Canada is. The entitled mother starts screaming louder now.
You are from here and like dressing like that.
She then starts saying cheap stuff about me and even about my mom, so now I was mad. My mom was a single parent as my dad was never really in my life. Say what you want about me, but my mom, I will destroy you. I walk towards the front where I know employees will be. The entitled mother and dad followed while still dragging their son. I say, okay, now listen to my voice very clearly. I am not from Texas. I'm from Saskatchewan, Canada. I don't have your southern accent. And I'm not a child. And I'm not dressed inappropriately. The entitled dad starts getting in my face screaming that he will have me arrested for dressing like that. He's so close that I can feel the spit hitting my face. He then grabs me and tells me that I will be the prison witch from now on. And this is where I act. I knee him hard. And as he falls, I kick him straight in the face. He is now on the ground and I got a good shot in and was very proud of myself. By this time, security and the police were called. As a police officer is talking to me, I ask if there is any way to call my stepmom up to the front so she's not looking for me. And they do. And as I'm waiting for her to come up, I start explaining what happened. I show the officer my ID, which clearly not only says that I'm in fact from Saskatchewan, but that I was only 16, which makes me a minor. And oh boy, is the entitled dad is even in more trouble now. My stepmom comes to the front and I explain what happened. She's fuming, and the officer asks me if I want to press charges. And I ask how that will work as a minor who lives in Canada. He explains and I agree. But I do also tell the officer of my concerns for the kid. Because if the parents react like that to someone in public, how do they even treat him in private? He agrees to father concerns as he agrees it is worrying. EMS are called for the entitled dad, as I may or may not have broken his nose. And for me, as they don't want to take any chances and could already see bruises forming quickly, I was given the all clear. Grandma was called to pick up the boy. She seemed really nice and was very apologetic for her son and daughter-in-law. And as I was leaving with my stepmom, I saw the entitled dad and the entitled mother sitting in the back of two cop cars. The aftermath, I don't have the full details, but for my case, the entitled mother was found guilty of harassment, and the entitled dad was found guilty of harassment and assault on a minor. I don't know what happened to the kid, but I hope he got to live with someone awesome who did not act the way his parents did. Edit. Okay, so let me make a couple of things clear. I have received a few messages about how a girl your size could have taken down a man who was much bigger than me. It is called self-defense, which I have been taking for multiple years at that point, due to other situations which I won't put here, but might share later on. Finally, for the people saying that I'm contradicting myself in my post about visiting my father but my mom raised me as a single parent, no, I am not. My mom did raise both myself and my brother on her own. I was trying to reconnect with my dad. He split when I was a baby, once in a while reappearing. My mom wanted us to have a relationship with him as he is our dad. Brother worked retail, so could not come that time due to store policy and Boxing Day. He still had rights to his kids as he got visitation. My mom was not going to fight with him on seeing us as she would not have been able to afford a lawyer, but my dad could have. My dad is a jerk for other things he did but was never physically abusive. You don't know the dynamics of my family or history. All you really should know is that my mom is the best, and I'm protective of her for everything she went through. Dad is a jerk, but unfortunately, still my dad. I was 16, so did not have much choice in the matter as again, I did not want to cause more issues for my mom. While in university, I was working in a popular supermarket chain as a team leader. I worked evenings, so this meant that I was essentially in charge of the checkouts as there were no managers in. I wore a headset, and if the cashiers needed assistance, they would buzz me and I would go help. It wouldn't say what help was needed on the headset, just which number checkout. One night I was in the middle of the store putting away some abandoned items. My headset tells me checkout 4 needs help. I'm on it. As I'm walking over, checkout 8 also buzzes in. Fine, I will go there next. It takes a good couple of minutes before I get to checkout 4. Some discounted items weren't going through and I needed to authorize something. It took about 3 minutes to put through all the items that the customer wanted, and then I made my way over to checkout 8. As I approach, I can hear this guy causing a scene. He is moaning about how long I'm taking and how incompetent we clearly are. As I get closer, I see this middle-aged man with his arms in the air in a come on gesture, complaining at the cashier that he has been on his feet all day and all he wants is another box of eggs. I'm super polite and ask how can I help. He turns with the biggest frown and I fully expect him to rip me a new one. But alas, he suddenly looks sheepish and his body visibly shrinks in with shame. You see, Redditors, I was 8 months pregnant at the time and as big as a house. The cashier explains that the eggs the man chose are broken and he needs a new box. Immediately he says, "Oh, I can go get them." There isn't even a queue behind him. He could have gotten them at any point. I say, no, that's okay, sir. You've been on your feet all day. Let me get your eggs for you. I waddle away and I take my time. And boy, was that embarrassing for him. My parents owned a laundromat for a few years. I posted before how my dad used to, and still does, think that his stuff did not stink, and he can do anything he wants. Well, he learned one day that, unfortunately, that wasn't always the case. Their laundromat was next to a bar, and the bar patrons would always take the spots right in front of the laundromat. Our best guess was because the bar's door was on that side and the open towards the laundromat, so the people were lazy and didn't want to walk around the door. My parents, with permission from the landlord, put up signs for the 3 spots in front of the laundromat saying, "Laundromat parking only. All other vehicles will be ticketed or towed." They figured that would be enough to deter people. But evidently not. People would still park in the spots. So my parents ended up calling bylaw and giving people tickets. I think the ticket was like $50 or something, so some people weren't happy about it. And that's where my entitled dad comes in. I wasn't actually there for this part, so I only have my parents' and brother's story to go off of, as well as the security footage. But here is what happened. Someone from the bar got a ticket and came up to the door, which was propped open, to ask my parents why he had gotten a ticket. My mom explained that he had parked in the laundromat parking lot and wasn't a laundromat customer. He said something along the lines of, "You can't do this." My brother said, "Yes, we can. We have the landlord's permission." The guy kicked the door and got into his car. This is the start of what I can see on the security footage too. My brother, who is a bit entitled himself too, grabbed the bag that we kept under the front desk and stood at the door. The guy and his buddy almost left when he came back to the door. He said, "This is ridiculous. I can't afford this ticket." I guess he saw my brother holding the baseball bat and decided to not push things further and got back in his car. Things could have ended there, but my entitled dad had to get his last words in. He was in the back fixing a few machines when he heard a guy come back, so he came out. Once the guy left, my dad went up to the door and said, "Why don't you cry to your mom, you little crybaby?" And he went to go back to his work. The guy did not like that and came inside this time, throwing the items my mom had on her desk across the store. My dad grabbed him and put him in a headlock, but the guy got loose and threw my dad into one of the machines. My brother hit the guy in the back with a baseball bat, and he left. This again could have been the end of things, but my dad decided to grab the broom that he kept next to the front door and chased after the guy with it. Now, I love my dad, but he was 55 at the time, and this guy was probably like 25. Everyone thinks their dad is the strongest person, but my dad was way out of shape. So he swung the broom at the guy and connected, but the guy grabbed the broom and pulled my dad to the ground with it. My brother had followed my dad out with the bat, but the guy's buddy had gotten out and stepped in front of him, and now they were fighting over the bat. Once my dad was on the ground, the guy basically laid into him, then dragged him across the parking lot. My mom, also 55, was on the phone with 911. According to my dad, because this was off camera, he hit him with a broom again, but the guy just punched him again, and then dragged him back into the frame of the security camera. My mom told him she was on the phone with 911, and they said they didn't want to deal with the police. We found out later it was because they were drug dealers, and actually known to police. So they got back into their car and drove away. My mom and brother were okay, but my dad was cut up and bleeding. Luckily, after the ambulance checked him over, nothing was broken. It was just minor cuts and scrapes. They gave all their stories and the security footage to the police, and the police said they were going to look into it so they could press charges against the 2 people from the car. We figured that was the end of things, but boy were we wrong. My brother left for a 2-week vacation when my parents got a call from the local police asking them to come in and sign a few papers. As soon as they got to the police station, My dad was put in handcuffs. They told him that he was being arrested and charged with assault with a weapon. Turns out that the police had reviewed the footage and determined that my dad was the aggressor. That since my dad had antagonized him and then my brother and him went after him with weapons, they considered the Pruma weapon, that both of them were going to be charged. My dad only spent a few hours in a holding cell before being released with a promise to appear in court. And as soon as my brother returned from his trip, he had to go to the station as well and do the same thing. I accompanied my parents to court since my brother went in 2 weeks after my dad. He had a different court date. We were told to look on a list to see which courtroom we had to go to. We looked at the lists, but my dad's name wasn't on either one. We went up to the front desk and showed them our paperwork. They were confused, and they told us to go to court number 1 and talk to the judge after everyone there had been processed. We sat through hours of people putting their pleas in, and the judge assigning them dates to come back for an actual trial, or where to go to pay their fines. When finally he said, "We have finished the list, is there anyone here who is not on the list?" So of course my dad went up, and the judge looked over his paperwork. He said, "Come back after lunch. I will have my assistant look into it, and we will let you know the outcome." And with that they broke for lunch. We went back after lunch and sat for a few more hours. When we finally heard OP's dad, "Are you here?" It was so weird hearing a judge call his name, like I was actually witnessing him get in trouble or something. My dad went down and the judge explained. My dad's case had been dropped the day before. We weren't notified because it was so soon to his court date, so we had wasted a day at the courthouse for nothing. And let me tell you, if you have never been to court, it's super boring. You are not allowed to use your phone or anything. My brother's case was also dropped, but he got a phone call before his actual date. All this could have been avoided if my dad had just kept it quiet, but he just had to get the last words in. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.